Blaney. 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 They were caught in the middle of Iowa Speedway. Thunder. They look around and they knew there was no turning back. Blaney. Their mind raced and they thought, what could they do? Blaney. And they knew there was no help from you. Blaney. Sound of the cars.
I don't think
beating in my heart. The thunder of Fords tore them apart. Blaney. You've been Blaney-struck. First time shotgun and a beer together in this new area. 3, 2, 1, go.
Boy, that boy's slow. I did start just a half second before you.
Yeah. That's for all you fans out there.
That wasn't nearly as bad as the last one.
Woo! God almighty, your burp stinks.
It smells like your mama.
My mama what?
Her southern fried chicken.
God almighty.
That was your burp, bro.
That was not my burp. You don't smell your own burp. I don't think. Can you smell your own burp? I don't think so. Well, we ate the same thing.
We did. Ass.
It's good for your diet.
That's what I hear.
In case you didn't know.
Best part of what you do is you get them to eat corn the night before.
Oh my God! Shut up. That's disgusting. It's cone.
Hey, they were in Iowa.
Boy, they were in Iowa corn.
It's cone.
They were where?
A big lump of knob.
Iowa Speedway, and they knew there was no turning back.
They've been
BLANEY-STRUCK. That's bop. That's a bop. They ought to change that name. Anyways, Riley, what did you think about old Iowa Corn 350 this past weekend?
It wasn't too bad.
Whew.
You soft? You going soft on us?
Yeah, it's soft right now.
Yeah, me too. Nah, but it was a...
This is whiskey, though. You know what they say about that?
I'm going to need some whiskey glasses. Anyways, Iowa was a good race. I think it was probably the second best short track race in this...
What was the first?
Bristol.
Were we there? We were there, baby.
We were there.
Cold as shit.
We might need to get tickets for the night race. That's what we need
I
to
gotta
do
work
instead of going to Darlington. You need to get it off.
Well,
But
you know what you love to say about me. I got all the rest of my vacation and sitting
to
at
go
a deer stand and not see nothing.
and not see nothing. Yeah. But yeah, it was the second best short track race in this next gen car for several different reasons. Seems like this car does well on repaves. North Wilkesboro and Iowa now. Those races were both pretty good. I think this race was just a little bit better than the Wilkesboro race.
Oh, I thought it was a way better race.
Just because I think the Wilkesboro race could have been this if it was a real race. It wasn't an all-star race.
Yeah,
if they had a 400-lapper, I think it would have been good there. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. You had multiple lanes. Everybody was concerned whether or not the middle lane was going to work or if you're just going to be wrapping the bottom. You could move up. There was different lanes. You had to find a little bit of clean air, and I think that's a little bit about what helped, Wilkesboro and what has been helping Iowa is that they're not short tracks. They're on the longer end for short tracks, and especially in Iowa's case, Iowa's raced more like a intermediate track, the way that you have to get into the corner, and it's not so much about protecting the bottom. It's more about finding that clean air and keeping up your center speed like you would have at an intermediate track, which this car races really well at intermediate. So I think it was a good in between of the two types of racetracks, and it put on a great show for those reasons. Like I said, I still don't think it was as good as Bristol because I still think tire wear needs to come into play a little bit. The tires didn't really wear at all. I mean, Blaney had 200 laps on his left side tires at the end of the race, and was just now saying that the tires were starting to wear on that car.
Was it that
when
many?
it ended.
200?
It was not. It was like 120, but still, that's a lot of laps. I mean, that's a quarter of the race, a little over a quarter of the race on the tires. So, yeah, I mean, it's not perfect by any means. This is not the most, Dale Earnhardt Jr. said it on his podcast this week on Dirty Air that this should be the normal race. This is what you should expect to see. This shouldn't be a 10 out of 10. This shouldn't be a 92% on the Gluck poll like it was. This is what we should expect when we go to these racetracks.
What race car are we going to?
And then every now and again, it should be better than this. It shouldn't get much worse. This should be the normal.
Yeah,
this should
median.
be baseline.
Yeah, the base. Yeah.
And if this is the baseline, like I said, it was the second best short track race of the year in my opinion. Second best short track race of the next gen era in my opinion. So I think they are learning some things about this package and what they can do to make the other ones better. But we'll see how that goes. But I texted you. Probably into stage one that I didn't know how I felt about the race because, my guys weren't running that well and, it's just, I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was going to turn out to be a good race, but strategy started to come into play once the longer stages, started to come into play and, you had a little bit of comers and goers, and guys started racing a little bit harder. I think the race got better, and I think this race would benefit from being a day race, which is weird for me to say because I usually am an advocate for night races, but I think the racing would benefit from hot slick surface. But overall, I give it an 8 out of 10 on the spectrum there. Nothing to really complain about other than, some stupid decisions by NASCAR, but the product on the track wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I thought it was a surprising result for first time coming to Iowa, partial repave, which still kind of bothers me. But, I was thinking of why they partially repaved it. I was thinking maybe if they just repave the inside of the corners and leave the top and the straightaways. Then in a couple of years, they could repave that. And then you're kind of having a track that's got different grip all over the track. So maybe that's what they're going for. They're trying something different. I always say, when it comes to things like that, I'm for it. It kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense in the moment, but it might work out in the long run. I've seen a few things, like we hated Atlanta when they decided to make it a quote-unquote super speedway, and now we all love it for the most part. There's been some other things where we've kind of questioned NASCAR, and I'm not saying NASCAR's perfect and they make every right decision because they definitely don't, but I'm saying, let's give it a shot. I thought this race was very good. First race at Iowa, I thought it was very entertaining. It was like almost like a better Richmond, and this year's Richmond race was pretty rough to watch. It was very bad. And this race was miles and miles better than that. So I enjoyed it. I give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I thought it was a very old school NASCAR race. Other than maybe the tire fall off, you had a lot of comers and goers like Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell was awful on the short run, and Brad Keselowski wasn't great on the short run.
No, he was terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Chase wasn't great on the short run, but as the run went on,
he just wasn't great.
Points leader.
He isn't great.
Points leader.
Average.
Having 2003 Matt Kenseth season.
That ain't gonna work.
Probably not. But I thought it was an old school NASCAR race. You had some comers and goers. I think Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney were definitely the class of the field on Sunday until Larson got what happened to him, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I thought it was a great race. 8 out of 10. Like you said, I think it was the second best short track race in this next gen era. And I had a good time. You know, it reminded me. I know my guys were up front pretty much all night, except for Chris Buescher, and even then, Chris Buescher was up there for a minute. But I thought it was a great race. There's a lot to build off of, and I think the important thing that we need to take into account here is why was this a pretty good short track race? If we can learn off that and build off that, then maybe come September, when we go and race at Bristol. Well, hell, we even got Richmond coming up here in about a month or two.
Yeah.
I don't think the Richmond race will be anything like this, but we need to find out why this race was quote unquote good. Now, it was not a perfect race by any stretch of the imagination. Like you said, Blaney won on 120 lap left side tires. So I mean that's not a great thing. Like back in the day, you would never do that. But let's not forget, even in the old era of NASCAR, you've had some guys that have, taken two-tire strategies, stayed out, and still gone on to win races. Now, it wasn't a huge run, like a big old run like we had at the end of this race, but it's not completely oblivious to not to have a guy that took two tires to win a race. It even on a longer run, but. Having said all that, I enjoyed it, and it's always good when Blaney wins, and hope we come back next year and the years beyond that. And by the way, on Friday, it kind of looked like a shit show. It looked like it was going to be a shit show. 20 tires. 20 tires better than 4 tires, right? 20 laps in practice, and you had guys blowing tires. Your pick, Christopher Bell, hit the wall a ton in practice. So did Austin Cindric. Ty Gibbs had a tire problem. He was able to save his car. But
Ross Chastain had a flat tire, and they tried to rebuild his car on the side of the road, it felt like.
And use the dolly. Yeah, that was a mess. But a lot of tire problems on Friday, and we had an extended practice. We had, a 50-minute practice. Imagine if that thing was 20 minutes.
No one would have known?
No one would have known, and we would have had a lot of tire failures. Now, we still had some tire failures on Sunday, like Eric Jones had a couple.
But it's the guys that always tear up tires.
Yeah, it's the guys
the same dudes that were cutting tires down at Bristol. Same guys.
Except for the Gibbs guys.
That's true.
And I think those guys, those smaller, I don't want to say smaller teams, but just not quite as quick teams, they try to push the limit because they know they don't have the...
And they can find it easy with tire
Yeah, they don't have the raw speed that these big teams have, like Hendrick or a Gibbs or a Penske, and they try to push the limit and exceed it. And, on Sunday you had A.J. Allmendinger. He had a rough weekend, man. He blew tires in both races. The person I feel sorry for the most is his wife.
Having to check out his balls.
I mean, she had to make sure his balls were okay 2 days in a row. That's a lot of work down there.
Lord, it's a damn shame.
So, AJ had a rough weekend.
Who?
Austin Hill had a rough weekend.
Fuck him.
Yep, fuck him. Eric Jones had a rough weekend. Austin Cindric had a rough weekend. Just, the guys that are not normally the quickest pushed the limit, exceeded the limit, and that's what you got still on Sunday. But, that's why me and you both have vowed for more practice. I'm not saying have 3-4 hour sessions or practices apiece like we used to have back in the day, but give us 1 hour practice each weekend. I don't really understand what the problem is with that. I know Freddie Kraft and TJ Majors don't like it, and some of the spotters might not like it. And
lazy fucks don't want to
But,
work.
I mean... I get their argument saying, hey, if we have more practice, the guys that are good will get better, and the gap will get bigger between good guys and the average guys.
Get better.
But you avoid shit like this where we can go aggressive on the tires. If we have more practices and we can experiment on what we can bring to the racetrack. Goodyear can be more aggressive. Goodyear we only have 20, 30 minutes of practice each weekend. So if you only have that, Goodyear's like, well, they're not going to be able to practice much. I don't want all these fucking tire failures if we go too aggressive, and we'll never know. That's what you would have had on Sunday. And you're like, oh, Goodyear needs to get aggressive. And we've said that. But it's NASCAR's job to help Goodyear out in that sense and make practice longer. Make these guys and these smart people in the garage and these teams learn if you want to try something different, and they can adapt to it.